my boyfriend and left me for my best friend, but he had no idea what he really missed out on. I thought Tyler was different. For 2 years, he dated the girl who worked double shifts at the campus coffee shop, wore thrift store clothes, and split grocery bills down to the penny. He'd joke about my humble background and how refreshing it was to be with someone who wasn't materialistic. "You're so real," he'd say, watching me count quarters for laundry. "Not like those spoiled rich girls who've never worked a day in their lives." I smiled and nodded, playing my part perfectly. What Tyler didn't know was that my family owns the third largest private equity firm in the country. The coffee shop job? A character-building exercise my dad insisted on. The thrift store clothes? A conscious choice to see who would love me for me, not my trust fund. I'd been burned before. In high school, my ex leaked my family's net worth to everyone after I broke up with him. Suddenly, I had 50 new best friends and a dozen guys asking me to prom. The experience taught me that money changes everything, so I decided to hide it. My best friend Brooke knew the truth. She'd grown up in the same circles, understood the pressure. She helped me maintain the facade, covering for me when family events conflicted with my work schedule, or so I thought. Last month, I walked into Tyler's apartment with his favorite pizza, planning to surprise him before his big job interview. Instead, I found him and Brooke tangled up on his couch. "This isn't what it looks like," Tyler stammered, scrambling for his clothes. Brooke didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She just smirked. "Actually, it's exactly what it looks like," she said, adjusting her hair. "Tyler and I have been together for months. We've been waiting for the right time to tell you." My hands shook as I set the pizza down. Months? Tyler at least had the grace to look guilty. "Listen, what we had was great, but Brooke and we just connect on a different level. She understands the finer things in life. She has opportunities." I almost laughed. Opportunities. If only he knew. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," Brooke said, not sounding sorry at all. "But honestly, Tyler needs someone who can match his ambitions, someone who can help him build the life he deserves." I nodded slowly, my mind racing. "You're right. He does deserve someone who can give him everything he wants." They exchanged a look, probably thinking I was taking this surprisingly well. "I hope you'll both be very happy," I said, walking toward the door. "Tyler, good luck with that interview tomorrow." "Thanks," he said, confusion flickering across his face. "That means a lot." As I reached the doorknob, I turned back one last time. "Oh, and Tyler, you might want to ask Brooke what she forgot to mention about that company you're interviewing with." Brooke's face went white. Tyler looked between us. "What's she talking about?" I smiled sweetly. "Nothing important, just that the CEO happens to be my father." The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler's mouth fell open. Brooke looked like she'd seen a ghost. "That's impossible," Tyler said slowly. "Your dad works in insurance, right? Actually, he's the founder and CEO of Blackstone Ventures. You know, the company you've been preparing for 3 weeks to interview with? The one you called your dream job?" Tyler sank onto the couch. "But you work at a coffee shop. You live in that tiny apartment. I choose to live simply. There's a difference." Brooke found her voice. "You're lying. I would have known." "Would you? Like how I would have known you were sleeping with my boyfriend for months?" I pulled out my phone and showed them my contact list. Tyler's interview was scheduled with Dad Office, the same number he'd been calling to confirm interview details. "This is insane," Tyler whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted someone to love me for who I am, not what I have. Clearly that was never you." Tyler stood up abruptly. "Wait, we can talk about this. I made a mistake. Brooke, she means nothing to me." "Hey," Brooke protested. "You're right," I said to Tyler. "She means nothing. And after tomorrow, neither will you." I left them there, arguing in his cramped apartment, and drove home to my family's estate for the first time in months. The 40-acre property sat behind iron gates in the most exclusive part of town. Tyler had driven past it countless times, always wondering who lived there. He'd even joked once that whoever owned it was probably some old money snob with no real problems. Mom was in the garden when I arrived, directing the landscaping crew. "Sweetheart!" She rushed over, still wearing her gardening gloves. "What a surprise! You look upset." I told her everything. By the time I finished, Dad had joined us on the terrace, along with my older brother who was home from Harvard Business School. "So this Tyler character has been dating you under false pretenses," Dad said, his voice cold. "And your friend Brooke orchestrated this betrayal to get closer to our family's connections. That's about the size of it." My brother shook his head. "What did you say his last name was?" "Tyler what?" "Caldwell. Tyler Caldwell." Dad and my brother exchanged a look. "The Caldwell family owns that chain of mid-tier furniture stores," my brother said. "They're drowning in debt. Word is they're about to file for bankruptcy." "Interesting," Dad mused. "And this young man thinks he's interviewing for a position at our firm tomorrow. Are you going to cancel it?" I asked. Dad smiled. "Oh no, sweetheart. I'm going to conduct that interview personally." The next morning, I watched from the executive conference room's hidden viewing area as Tyler sat across from my father. He'd worn his best suit and practiced his handshake. He had no idea he was about to walk into an ambush. "So, Tyler," Dad began, reviewing his resume. "Tell me about your current situation." Tyler launched into his prepared speech about ambition and drive. Dad listened patiently, occasionally asking pointed questions about Tyler's background, his family's business struggles, his long-term goals. "I noticed on your application that you listed Brooke Whitmore as a reference," Dad said casually. "How do you know Brooke?" Tyler shifted uncomfortably. "She's a friend, a close friend." "I see. And what about my daughter?" Tyler's face went pale. "Your daughter?" "Yes. I believe you two have been dating for about 2 years." The blood drained from Tyler's face completely. "Sir, I can explain." Please do. Tyler stammered through an explanation that made him sound even worse. He tried to claim it was just a misunderstanding, that he and I had been taking a break, that Brooke was just helping him through a difficult time. Dad listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. Tell me, Tyler, Dad said when Tyler finished. What do you think loyalty means in business? Loyalty it's everything, sir. Trust, reliability, keeping your word. And yet you've been betraying my daughter's trust for months while planning to use her friends' connections to advance your career. Tyler opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing he could say. I'm curious about something else, Dad continued. What did you think of my daughter's lifestyle? Her job, her apartment, her financial situation? I thought she was hardworking, independent, but not wealthy. No, sir, that didn't matter to me. I loved her for who she was. Dad leaned forward. Loved her enough to cheat on her, apparently. Tyler's hands were shaking now. Mr. Blackstone, please. I know I made a mistake. I know this looks bad, but I'm a good worker. I can bring value to your company. I'm sure you could, Dad said. Unfortunately, we have a strict policy about hiring people who betray the trust of our family members. Tyler's face crumpled. Please. You don't understand. My family's business is failing. I need this job. I'm drowning in student loans. My mom, she's been counting on me to help save the store. For a moment, Dad's expression softened. Then he spoke again, his voice still professional, but with an edge of finality. That's unfortunate, Tyler. But perhaps you should have considered those consequences before you decided to betray my daughter. Dad stood up, signaling the interview was over. Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch. I watched Tyler gather his papers with shaking hands and walk out of the building where he'd hoped to start his dream career. But I wasn't done with him yet. That evening, Tyler called me 17 times. I ignored every call. Finally, he sent a text. Please, I know I screwed up. Can we talk? I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. Not the one where I worked. Somewhere neutral. He was already there when I arrived, looking haggard and desperate. I didn't get the job, he said as soon as I sat down. I know. Your father told me what you really are, who your family is. And how does that make you feel? Tyler ran his hands through his hair. Confused, angry, stupid. How could you lie to me for 2 years? The same way you could cheat on me for months, I suppose. He flinched. That's different. Is it? We were both hiding something from each other. The difference is, my secret was protecting you. Yours was betraying me. Tyler leaned forward desperately. But don't you see? This changes everything. We could have had a real future together. You could have helped me save my family's business. We could have built something amazing. With Brooke? Forget Brooke. She doesn't matter. You're the one I want to be with. I stared at him, amazed by his audacity. Now that you know about my money, it's not about the money, isn't it? 5 hours ago, you were telling Brooke how you needed someone who could match your ambitions. Someone with opportunities. Tyler's face reddened. You heard that? I heard everything, Tyler. Including the part where you said I didn't understand the finer things in life. He opened his mouth to protest, but I held up my hand. Let me tell you about the finer things in life that you'll never experience now. I pulled out my phone and showed him photos I'd never shared before. This is our family box at Yankee Stadium. Dad's been a season ticket holder since 1987. Derek Jeter came to my 16th birthday party. Tyler's eyes widened. He was obsessed with baseball. Had Yankees memorabilia covering his apartment walls. This is our house in the Hamptons where we spend summers. And this is our ski lodge in Aspen. Mom hosts Christmas there every year. I swiped to the next photo. This is me with Tom Brady at last year's Super Bowl. Dad's company sponsors several teams. We get VIP access to every major sporting event. Tyler's face was getting paler with each photo. And this, I said, showing him a picture of me in a flowing gown at a charity gala, is from the Metropolitan Museum's annual fundraiser. I sit on the youth board. That's Leonardo DiCaprio in the background. Stop, Tyler whispered. But I wasn't finished. Remember how you always talked about wanting to travel? This is our yacht in Monaco. And this is me in Tokyo with the Olympic delegation. Dad's on the International Olympic Committee. Tyler put his head in his hands. Please stop. You wanted someone with opportunities, Tyler. Brooke has opportunities. Her father owns 3 car dealerships. Very impressive. I leaned back in my chair, watching him process what he'd lost. The thing is, I continued, I would have shared all of this with you. Eventually. Once I knew you loved me for me, not for what I could give you. I was planning to tell you on our 3rd anniversary next month. Tyler looked up, his eyes red. 3 years? I had it all planned out. I was going to take you to dinner at Le Bernardin. Dad knows the chef personally. And tell you everything. I even had a job lined up for you at the firm. A real position, not an entry-level interview. You would have started as my brother's assistant, learning directly from him. Tyler's breathing became shallow. A job at Blackstone Ventures? Starting salary would have been $180,000, plus bonuses, plus benefits, plus the connections that come with being part of our family. He was hyperventilating now. But you chose Brooke instead, and her father's failing car dealerships. Tyler suddenly grabbed my hands across the table. I can fix this. I can make this right. Brooke means nothing to me. I'll never speak to her again. I gently pulled my hands away. Tyler, it's over. No, it's not. We can work through this. People make mistakes. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. You love what I can give you. That's not true. I loved you before I knew about any of this. Did you? Or did you love the idea of having someone who wouldn't challenge you? Someone you could feel superior to? Tyler's face crumpled. Don't say that. It's true though, isn't it? You liked that I counted quarters for laundry while you paid for dinner with your credit card. You liked that I wore thrift store clothes while you critiqued other girls for being high maintenance. You liked feeling like the successful one in the relationship. Tyler was crying now. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Please give me another chance. I stood up to leave. There's one more thing you should know, I said, about Brooke. Tyler looked up hopeful, probably thinking I was about to give him information he could use to win me back. She only slept with you because she thought it would get her closer to my family's money. She's been using you just as much as you've been using me. Tyler's face went white. What do you mean? Ask her about the trust fund her grandfather left her. The one that gets cut off if she doesn't marry someone from an approved list of families. Ask her why she suddenly became interested in you right after I told her I was thinking about introducing you to my parents. I left Tyler sitting there, finally understanding the depth of his betrayal and manipulation, but I still wasn't done. The next day, I called Brooke. We need to talk, I said. She agreed to meet me at her apartment. When I arrived, she was pacing nervously. Look, she said before I could speak, about Tyler. I know you're upset, but I'm not here about Tyler. Brooke stopped pacing. Then why are you here? I'm here about your trust fund. The color drained from her face. What about it? The one that requires you to marry someone from the approved families list. The one your grandfather designed to keep the money in the right social circles. Brooke sank onto her couch. How did you? My family's been on that list for 3 generations, Brooke. Our families have been friends since before we were born. Your grandfather and my grandfather served on multiple boards together. Brooke's voice was barely a whisper. So you know. I know that you're 23 and still single, which means you have 2 years left to find an approved husband, or you lose everything. I know your father's car dealerships are struggling, and he's been counting on your inheritance to save them. And I know that you targeted Tyler specifically because you thought I was going to bring him home to meet my parents. Brooke buried her face in her hands. You thought that if you could steal him from me and then somehow get my family to accept him, you could marry him and satisfy the trust requirements. I didn't mean for it to happen this way, Brooke whispered. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did hurt me. And for what? Tyler's not on the list, Brooke. He's never going to be on the list. His family has no money, no connections, no social standing. Even if you married him, you'd lose your inheritance anyway. Brooke looked up, her eyes wide with realization. I didn't think about that. No, you didn't think at all. You just saw an opportunity and took it. I pulled out my phone and showed her a document. This is the updated approved families list from last month. See Tyler's name anywhere? Brooke scanned the list desperately, then shook her head. But here's the really interesting part, I continued. The Whitmore Family Trust requires marriage to someone from an approved family or a demonstrated commitment to expanding approved social circles through charity work and community investment. Brooke looked confused. What does that mean? It means that if you'd spent the last 2 years volunteering for approved charities and building connections with approved families, you could have satisfied the requirements without getting married at all. Brooke's face went white. Are you serious? Dead serious. Your grandfather included that clause specifically for family members who might not find suitable spouses. He wasn't as old-fashioned as everyone thought. I swiped to the next page of the document. There's a list of qualifying activities right here. Serving on nonprofit boards, hosting fundraisers for approved charities, volunteering for political campaigns of approved candidates. Brooke was hyperventilating. I could have done all of that. You could have. Instead, you chose to destroy our friendship and steal my boyfriend for nothing. Brooke grabbed my arm. You could still help me. You're on the list. Your family could sponsor me for board positions. I could make up for lost time. I gently removed her hand from my arm. I could, but I won't. Please. My father's business will fail without that money. My whole family will lose everything. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you betrayed the one person who could have helped you. I stood to leave, but Brooke blocked my path. I'm sorry, she said desperately. I'm truly sorry. I know I hurt you, but please don't let my family suffer for my mistakes. Your family isn't suffering for your mistakes, Brooke. They're suffering from your father's poor business decisions and your grandfather's manipulation. You're just looking for someone to blame. I'll do anything to make this right. I'll tell Tyler the truth about everything. I'll publicly apologize. You'll leave me alone, I said firmly, and you'll figure out your own problems. As I reached the door, Brooke called out one last time. What about forgiveness? What about second chances? I turned back to face her. I learned something from my family's success, Brooke. Sometimes the best business decision is knowing when to cut your losses. I left her crying in her apartment, finally understanding that actions have consequences. Over the next few weeks, I watched both Tyler and Brooke's worlds fall apart. Tyler's family furniture store filed for bankruptcy 2 days after his failed interview. His mother called me, somehow having gotten my number, begging me to ask my father to reconsider hiring Tyler. He's a good boy, she sobbed over the phone. He just made a mistake. Please, we need this job to survive. I gently explained that the decision was out of my hands, which wasn't entirely true. Dad had actually asked me if I wanted him to reconsider, and I'd said no. Brooke's situation was even more desperate. With less than 2 years left to satisfy her trust requirements and no connections to help her, she tried reaching out to other families on the approved list. But word travels fast in small social circles, and her reputation for betraying friends had preceded her. She called me one more time, 3 weeks after our confrontation. I'm getting married, she announced. Congratulations. To whom? Richard Pemberton. His family's on the list. I knew Richard. He was 67 years old, twice divorced, and had a reputation for collecting young wives. Brooke, are you sure about this? I don't have a choice. It's him or lose everything. There's always a choice. Not for me, not anymore. She hung up before I could respond. 2 months later, I received a wedding invitation. Brooke and Richard were getting married at his estate in Newport. The invitation was formal, expensive, and completely impersonal. I didn't go. Instead, I spent that weekend at our house in the Hamptons with my family, finally ready to stop hiding who I was. I want to start being more open about our wealth, I told my parents over dinner. I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not. Dad nodded approvingly. I think that's wise. The right person will love you regardless of money, and the wrong person will reveal themselves quickly, Mom added. My brother looked up from his phone. Speaking of the wrong people, Tyler Caldwell is on Instagram asking if anyone knows how to get in touch with you. I laughed. Block him. Already did. But his posts are kind of pathetic. He's been writing these long captions about how he's learned from his mistakes and wants to make amends. Let me guess, I said. He's suddenly very interested in charity work and personal growth. How did you know? Because he thinks he can reinvent himself and somehow win me back. Dad chuckled. Some people never learn. 6 months later, I started dating again. This time, I was completely honest from the beginning about my family's wealth and status. I figured if someone was going to use me for money, I'd rather know up front. The difference was remarkable. Men either ran away immediately, intimidated by the pressure, or they stayed and proved they were genuinely interested in me as a person. There was no middle ground, no room for confusion or hidden motives. I met Christopher at a charity auction my family was hosting. He was there representing his law firm's pro bono program, and he had no idea who I was when he struck up a conversation about the silent auction items. That painting is beautiful, he said, pointing to a piece I'd donated anonymously. But $30,000 seems steep. Art is subjective, I replied. Sometimes you pay for the story behind the piece, not just the piece itself. What's the story behind this one? I smiled. The artist painted it after a major life change. She was letting go of who she thought she had to be and embracing who she really was. Christopher studied the painting more carefully. I can see that. There's something about the brushstrokes that feels liberated. We talked for 2 hours. He never once asked what I did for work or how I knew the family hosting the event. He was just interested in getting to know me. When he finally asked for my number, I told him the truth. Before you decide if you want to see me again, there's something you should know about me. Christopher looked concerned. Okay. My family has money. A lot of money. Like, stupid amounts of money. He blinked. Oh, and I'm telling you this because I've learned that it's better to be honest up front than to let people discover it later and feel deceived. Christopher was quiet for a moment, processing. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Sure. When you say your family has money, are we talking nice house and good schools money or private jet and multiple homes money? Private jet and multiple homes. He nodded slowly. And you're telling me this because I want to know if you're interested in me or my bank account. Christopher laughed. Well, I was definitely interested before I knew about the bank account. Does that count? It's a good start. We've been together for 8 months now. Christopher has met my family, seen our homes, and even joined us on vacation in Italy. Through it all, he's remained exactly the same person I met at that charity auction. Kind, funny, and completely unimpressed by material things. The real test came when Tyler found out about Christopher through mutual acquaintances and tried to warn him about me. Christopher told me about it immediately. Some guy named Tyler approached me at the gym, he said. He claimed he used to date you and wanted to warn me about your family. My heart sank. What did he say? That your family would try to control me, that you'd hidden your wealth from him and couldn't be trusted, that I should ask you about how you treated him. And what did you tell him? Christopher grinned. I told him that if a woman was smart enough to hide her wealth from gold diggers, she was definitely smart enough for me. You said that? I also told him that if he was going around warning your new boyfriends instead of reflecting on why you felt the need to hide your wealth from him, he was probably the reason you had trust issues in the first place. I kissed him right there in the middle of the restaurant. Tyler never bothered us again. Last month, I heard through the social grapevine that Brooke's marriage to Richard had ended in divorce after just 6 months. Apparently, he discovered she was only interested in satisfying her trust requirements and filed for an annulment. Without the marriage or the alternative charity work, Brooke lost her inheritance. Her father's business folded shortly after. She moved back in with her parents and took a job as a receptionist at a dental office. Tyler, meanwhile, had moved back home after college and was working at a sporting goods store in the mall. His parents had lost their house in the bankruptcy, and they were all living in a small apartment across town. I didn't take any pleasure in their misfortune. Their current situations were the natural consequences of their choices, not anything I'd engineered. But I did appreciate the irony. Tyler had wanted someone who could help him build the life he deserved. He'd thought that person was Brooke, with her family connections and inheritance prospects. Instead, he'd given up a relationship with someone who actually could have given him everything he dreamed of. Brooke had wanted to secure her financial future through marriage or family connections. She thought stealing Tyler would somehow lead to a relationship with my family. Instead, she'd destroyed the one genuine friendship that could have helped her navigate the social requirements of her trust. They'd both reached for fool's gold and lost the real treasure they already had. The last time I saw Tyler was at the grocery store 3 months ago. I was buying ingredients for a dinner party Christopher and I were hosting at my parents' house. Tyler was working the register. He recognized me immediately but pretended not to. I played along, acting like any other customer. As he rang up my items, expensive wine, organic vegetables, imported cheese, I could see him processing the cost. The total came to over $400, more than he probably made in a week. Will that be cash or card? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. Card, I said, handing him my black American Express. As he processed the payment, I noticed his hands shaking slightly. Have a nice day, he said, without making eye contact. You too, I replied. As I walked away, I heard him tell his coworker he needed to take a break. I didn't feel vindicated or satisfied. I just felt sad for him. Tyler had always wanted more than what he had, and there's nothing wrong with ambition. But he'd been so focused on climbing the ladder that he'd forgotten to look at who was standing beside him, ready to lift him up. Now he was stuck at the bottom, looking up at everything he could have had if he'd just been honest and loyal. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd told him the truth earlier. Would he have stayed faithful? Would our relationship have worked out? I'll never know for sure, but I suspect not. The Tyler who fell in love with my thrift store clothes and humble apartment was the same Tyler who cheated with Brooke. The money would have just changed the surface details, not his character. Christopher knows this story, all of it. He knows why I was cautious about revealing my family's wealth, and he understands why trust is so important to me. You dodged a bullet, he told me after I explained everything. Tyler showed you exactly who he was when he thought you had nothing to offer him. That's valuable information. He's right. In trying to protect myself from gold diggers, I'd accidentally created the perfect test of character. Tyler had failed spectacularly. These days, I'm more selective about who I trust, but I'm also more confident in my ability to recognize genuine people. I volunteer openly with my family's foundation, serve on nonprofit boards, and attend charity events where my wealth is obvious and acknowledged. I also keep working at the coffee shop, but now it's by choice rather than necessity. The job keeps me grounded and connected to people outside my social circle. My coworkers know who my family is, but they also know I'm not above cleaning espresso machines or dealing with difficult customers. That balance feels authentic in a way that hiding ever did. Christopher proposed last month. The ring isn't the biggest or most expensive one I could have had, but it's perfect because he chose it himself, knowing I'd love the meaning behind it more than the status symbol. We're planning a wedding for next spring. It'll be large because my family has many friends and business associates to invite, but it'll also be personal and meaningful. Tyler and Brooke won't be invited, obviously, but I hope they've both learned something from their experiences. I hope Tyler has realized that true partnership means supporting each other through good times and bad, not just until something better comes along. I hope Brooke has learned that shortcuts and manipulation never lead to genuine happiness or security. Mostly, though, I hope they've both learned that betraying people who care about you isn't just morally wrong. It's also incredibly stupid, because you never know who you might be betraying, or what opportunities you might be destroying. In Tyler's case, he betrayed someone who could have given him everything he wanted. In Brooke's case, she betrayed someone who would have helped her build the life she needed. They both gambled on deception and lost everything. I gambled on honesty and found love. Sometimes the biggest risk is being real with people, but sometimes it's the only way to find out who's worth keeping around. Tyler learned that lesson too late. By the time he realized what he'd lost, I was already gone, building a life with someone who loved me for exactly who I am, trust fund and all. The funny thing is, Tyler had been right about one thing. I am different from those spoiled rich girls he'd complained about. I work for my money, even though I don't have to. I value relationships over material things. I believe in earning respect rather than demanding it because of my family name. He'd found exactly what he claimed to want, and he'd thrown it away for someone he thought could give him more. Now he rings up groceries for people like me, people who have everything he'd dreamed of and lost his chance to share. As for Brooke, she'd been so focused on gaming the system that she'd forgotten the system was designed by people who understood loyalty and trust. Her grandfather's money had strings attached because he'd wanted to ensure it went to family members who embodied certain values. Brooke had spent so much energy trying to work around those values that she'd never bothered to actually develop them. In the end, both Tyler and Brooke got exactly what they deserved, not because I punished them, but because their choices led them naturally to their current situations. I didn't ruin Tyler's career prospects. His betrayal of my family's trust did that. I didn't sabotage Brooke's marriage. Her mercenary approach to relationships did that. I didn't destroy their friendship. Their willingness to deceive and use each other did that. All I did was stop protecting them from the consequences of their actions. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do to someone who's hurt you isn't revenge. It's simply stepping aside and letting them face the natural results of their choices. Tyler wanted someone who could advance his career. He got Brooke, whose connections led nowhere. Brooke wanted financial security through family connections. She got Tyler, who had no family connections worth having. They both got exactly what they asked for. I got something better. I got Christopher, who wanted a partner, not a bank account. And I got the knowledge that I'm strong enough to walk away from people who don't value what I bring to their lives. Tyler thought he was trading up when he chose Brooke over me. Instead, he traded away the only real chance he'll ever have at the life he wanted. That's what happens when you mistake fool's gold for the real thing. Sometimes the most valuable things come in humble packaging. And sometimes the biggest mistake you can make is not recognizing treasure when it's right in front of you. Tyler learned that lesson too late. But I learned something too. I'm worth more than settling for someone who sees me as a stepping stone instead of a destination. And that's a lesson that will serve me well for the rest of my life.